The black napkins at Pine Street Trattoria always smelled faintly of detergent, and that night the whole place felt like fabric softener and canned marinara. My mother wore that pearlized pink lipstick that left ghost marks on her water glass. My dad unfolded his menu and pretended to read it while watching me over the top, like he used to when I was 16 and came home after midnight with smeared eyeliner and a story about getting lost. Now he did it like a person who'd rehearsed disappointment and kept it in his inside pocket, just in case. It was a family dinner, my mother had said, all disappointed sighs over the phone. Just us three. No kids tonight. Let Lily rest, she said, like the logic had always belonged to her and not to the oncology nurse who had written the actual orders on our refrigerator whiteboard in blue Expo marker. We ordered, we made small talk, and then my mother slid a manila envelope across the table. I knew that envelope before I saw it. The way she tucked the flap like she was hiding a gift. The heaviness of papers clipped together. My hands went numb even before I pulled it open. Don't be dramatic, my father said, when the words co-borrower and 50,000 unfurled like a paper cut. It's just family business. My throat went tight. My fingers found the folded boarding passes in my purse like rosary beads, except I've never prayed and I didn't start that night. Cincinnati to Denver, 6:05 a.m. tomorrow. They thought I had no exit, no money, no backbone, no way out that didn't run through them. They didn't know I'd already bought a ticket. It turns out there's a specific kind of quiet that falls at a table when you tell your parents you won't be signing their papers and you won't be staying. It's like the world holds its breath and everything else listens, the forks, the wine glass, the servers leaning over plates 2 tables away. That's when a story can break either way. That's where mine broke and started to stitch itself back together. I was 28 when Lily started throwing up on Tuesdays. Not every Tuesday, not always, but a lot. It was the day the music teacher did recorders with the first graders, and Lily's backpack would make that hollow clacky sound with her little white whistle and a Ziploc bag of carrot sticks, and then Mrs. Bentley would call me at Lincoln Elementary and say, "Rachel? I've got Lily up here with Nurse Dean," like she didn't want to make it urgent, but wanted me to come anyway. Lily was 5 then. She ran like a deer and lined up her crayons in order of whatever logic lived behind her eyes. She'd stand in a puddle and yell reflection, and I'd think, she makes everything a science experiment, and I loved her for it. The week she started getting bruises on the insides of her arms, tiny little constellations like someone had sprinkled cake sprinkles the wrong color, we went to her pediatrician. Then we went to Dayton Children's, and the corridors smelled like lemon cleaner and sugar-free Jell-O. They took blood like it was a routine that belonged to our bodies all along, and the doctor with gentle eyes said leukemia in a voice soft enough to shatter glass. I remember the ceiling tiles above the gurney while they put in her 4, the pattern of perforations making 1,000 tiny constellations that weren't on her skin. I remember being 30% fury, 70% terror, and 100% in love with a small person whose fingers sought mine even while she slept. My mother came to the hospital with a tote bag of things I hadn't asked for, magazines, hard candies, a cardigan I'd left at her house years ago. She smelled like coconut lotion and control. If you had kept up with her vitamins, she said, then stopped because even she knew it was a sentence that couldn't be finished out loud. My dad found the vending machines like he'd been born to locate vending machines, rustled through dollar bills, came back with 3 different kinds of chips and 2 bottles of water. He didn't know where to put his hands. He put one on my shoulder. "We're here," he said, and for a minute, I believed him. In those early days, they brought casseroles in disposable tins and texted me sign-ups for meal trains like they'd invented the concept. They built a spreadsheet. They stood in the hallway outside Lily's room and whispered about co-pays and parking passes like they were stadium maps. They told their friends about our journey, which stuck in my throat like a dry pill. A nurse named Alyssa taught me to flush Lily's port and then watch her for fevers like the weather. Lily got her hair cut because it kept falling out in the tub, and my mom took her to a salon and asked for a pixie even though Lily asked for a bob. "It'll be adorable," she said, and texted me photos like hearts dropping into a well. At home, I taped the schedule to the fridge, chemo days marked in red, steroids in blue, anti-nausea meds in green. I kept the binder with the plastic sleeves of our life in it, scans, notes, the name and number of every person who touched our care. I slept like a soldier on high alert who never sets the pack down. Lily slept with her ragged bunny tucked under her arm, both of them smelling like Johnson shampoo and hospital soap. When Lily felt well enough, she went to school in bursts. Mrs. Bentley sent her home with art projects and handwriting worksheets, a little pencil grip shaped like a dolphin. The school secretary, me, on my own time, went to the office after hours to scan forms and email them to the hematology department because I knew which fax number actually worked. We rode the elevator together on clinic days, and Lily pressed the button with the tips of her fingers like it was an assignment. My parents started a fundraiser without asking. They made a page on a crowdfunding site with a photo of Lily in a pink hoodie, cheeks round from steroids. My mother wrote, "Please help our girl," and my dad posted it on his business page for Morgan Roofing and Gutters, captioned with a hammer emoji and 3 hearts, like any of those things belong together. At first, I was grateful in the messy, compromised way that gratitude sits when you're scared. People from high school I hadn't seen in a decade sent $20. The moms from Lily's PTA, the neighbor with the dog that always ran away, my mom's hairdresser, money came from everywhere like raining pennies. It paid for gas, for the difference between a generic and a brand-name antiemetic that actually kept Lily from vomiting in the driveway. It paid for Tuesday night pizza when all I could do was open a lid and breathe. But my mother called her friend at Channel 7 and said, "Wouldn't it be just the sweetest story?" And the camera showed up with a man who smelled like clean laundry and deadlines. He asked me to talk into a microphone, and I said no because no. My mom introduced Lily to the cameraman anyway and said, "This is our little fighter," and my stomach became a fist. "Mom," I said, when he left, "please ask me before you do anything." "What?" she said, eyes round with innocence. "People love to help." My dad hand-waved it like he always did. "It's good PR," he said, and smiled like it wasn't about him at all. In that season, I learned the quiet ways love can be a leash. I learned how to say thank you while locking doors. There were nights my mother sat at my kitchen table, drinking coffee like it was a sacrament she could pour down her throat and conjure virtue. There were mornings my dad fixed my screen door and then reminded me, in a voice that wanted to be gentle, that I had done nothing like that for them lately. Lily learned to take deep breaths on command and blow a pinwheel in the pre-op room. She taught me how to sit on a stool and make my face a calm place. She was small and fierce and sometimes sad in ways that made her point exactly at the place on my chest that was a bruise of love. We were a little ecosystem, and my parents were weather we did not ask for. The first year, I let them be clouds. I stood under it and decided I could handle the rain if it saved me the lightning. By the time Lily turned 7, her hair grew back in little wiry curls that made her look like a dandelion. She was in maintenance chemo, which sounds like a car you bring in every few months until you remember the car can cry and laugh and ask for chocolate ice cream at 2 in the morning because the steroids made her crave sweetness like air. We had a rhythm. Mondays were labs. Tuesdays were maybe school. Thursdays were the day Lily made it to art class and came home with paint under her nails. On weekends, we did puzzles and went to the park when her counts were good and watched nature videos when they weren't. We counted down months like you count down to a road trip, my finger moving over the calendar squares, her head against my shoulder like the weight that kept me upright. My parents helped calcify it into something with sharp edges. They had opinions on everything. They also had access to money that didn't belong to them because they had set up the fundraiser with their names and a bank account my mother insisted was just easier. "We'll handle the logistics," she said, like I didn't do logistics for a living. There was the time my mom told the pharmacy she'd be picking up Lily's meds, and when the tech said the copay was $93, she made a face so contorted with virtue that he apologized. She brought me the bag with the label still attached and said, "You should say thank you," and I did. Then I checked the fundraiser. A withdrawal had been made that morning for $200, labeled Lily Meds and Gas. When I scrolled further, there were other withdrawals I hadn't known about. $3,700 for house repairs, $700 for printer ink and business, $99 for a meal at a steakhouse on my mom's birthday. I took screenshots. I scrolled and scrolled until my thumb hurt. I sent my mother a text. Going forward, I will manage the fundraiser and transfer funds to cover Lily's expenses. It's not for anything else. My heart pounded like a small animal in my chest while I typed it. She called immediately. Do you think I would ever? $700 for printer ink? I said into the silence between us. You think I can't do math? You're ungrateful, she said, the word like a slap. We have kept you afloat. You've kept me attached, I said, and it was out, and something in me sighed like a knot loosened a little. I'm changing the password. You can't, she said, like I'd said I was turning off gravity. It's in my name. I called the platform, my voice steady because of practice. Fancy words like beneficiary and misuse and documentation were the rope ladders I climbed out with. It took 2 weeks, but they moved the account to me. My mother sent me a meme about family loyalty and then, in the same breath, asked me to meet with her friend who does numbers because women our age sometimes don't think these things through. My dad's business started to falter, or it had been faltering, and I was only just allowed to see trucks with the logo parked in their driveway more often. One afternoon when I was picking Lily up from their house after they'd insisted on a sleepover, I heard my father on the phone, voice pitched to salesman. We just need some breathing room, he said, and when he hung up, he saw me and smiled too big. How's our girl? He asked, like the question could cover everything. He started making comments about investing in family. You'll be back on your feet after this treatment, he said. We'll expand the business again. He spoke a language like there had been an earlier conversation. I was always walking into the middle of their scripts. At a pancake breakfast fundraiser the PTA held for Lily, paper plates sagging under syrup, the whole gym smelling like sugar and coffee, my parents stood at the front with a microphone and talked about resilience. My mom cried on command. My dad thanked everyone like a politician, shaking hands as though votes were in it. They mentioned their business 3 times. They asked people to call Morgan Roofing for all their roofing needs. Mom, I said afterward, breathless from chasing Lily around the balloon arch, please don't use this to promote your business. My mother blinked like I had spoken another language. It's all connected, she said. We're a family. When Lily had a bad month, it was awful. When she had a good month, my parents treated it like a refi. They leaned on me harder. They asked me to pick up their prescriptions because they couldn't make it before the store closed, but they lived 7 miles from that pharmacy and my odometer told the truth. My dad asked me to loan him my car while the truck was in the shop. He brought it back with a new dent in the rear bumper and a shrug that wanted to be apology but didn't want to admit fault. Text messages came like water dripping from a hose you can't tighten. Mom, bring Lily this weekend, Grandpa, and I want to take her to the expo for Kid Heroes. Me, she has clinic. She can't go to a convention center full of strangers with a compromised immune system. Mom, her story matters. Don't you think it would be healing? Dad, the chamber is doing a feature on small businesses that give back. We'll be there, it'll be wholesome. She can wave. Keep her masked. It's not a big deal. Me, no. Mom, I don't know why you say everything like it's a no. I learned to say it like it was a full sentence. No. Behind it all, there was the thing most people didn't see. The night the air conditioner broke at my parents' and my mom called me not to ask if Lily was sleeping okay, but to ask if I knew a contractor who would give the family discount. The day my father's voice cracked on the phone and he said, we had to dip into home equity, like it was something that happened to him, not something he had chosen. We're family, he repeated, sharpening it until it cut. My ex, Dave, sent the same $230 every other Friday through a court-ordered system, sometimes late. He texted, how's she doing, in the way of a person who wants to feel absolved by the question. He moved to Tampa, got a line cook job, posted photos of fish tacos, wrote, miss my girl, under a picture from 2 summers ago. He was part of our story, and then he wasn't. He called on birthdays. Lily stopped asking where he was. There is a thing about crisis. You can live in it for so long you forget you're allowed to be done. People who love you learn how much you can carry and then structure their needs on your back like it's natural. They plant their problems in the dirt of your endurance and call it a garden. If you've never had a 7-year-old curl in your lap while Blue Planet plays softly because the ocean is the only thing wider than pain, let me tell you, the smallest voices expose the deepest truths. Half asleep, Lily said, "Mama, I don't like when Grandma talks in that way. It makes my tummy feel like when the elevator stops between floors." You can build your life around that sentence. I did. It was a Wednesday in late May after rain. You know the smell, wet pavement and worms, that metallic tang the air gets when it's been shocked. I picked Lily up from school early because she had labs in the afternoon. She was wearing a paper crown from some classroom activity, the jagged cut of it making her look like a queen who didn't care about neatness. She held a drawing of a whale. It was really good. The tail looked like it was about to leave the paper. On the way to the hospital, my mom called 3 times and then texted, "Call me right now, please," in a row, which is how emergencies and annoyances look the same. I called while I was buckling Lily's seatbelt. "We're heading to the hospital," I said. "What's up?" "We've been asked to speak," my mom said, her voice bright like glitter. Like a community highlight. The chamber luncheon. "I think it would be really meaningful to have Lily there." "Today?" I said. "Now? We have labs." "It's 5 minutes," she said. "We'll be in and out. Bring her by the Marriott, I'll meet you in the lobby." "No," I said, my voice already in my throat like a nerve. "Absolutely not." She sighed. "We already told them yes." I said nothing. The kind of nothing that's louder than yelling. "Carl promised," she said, softer, because sometimes she used my dad's name like a spare parachute. "It would mean a lot to him." "I'll call you after labs," I said, and hung up because I could feel the elevator stop between floors in my own stomach. In pre-op, while the nurse rubbed Lily's port with a swab that smelled like space, clean, sterile, dangerous if you get it wrong, my phone buzzed. "My dad, lobby?" A photo of the Marriott in the background, a plate of chicken and rice in the foreground, a banner behind him with words about community investment. My mom's hair looked perfect. My dad wore a suit he only wore to weddings and court dates. I sent him a photo back of Lily giving a thumbs up to no one in particular, her lips already a little dry from the saline. The text below it said, "Stop exploiting her." He didn't respond. After labs, Lily wanted ice cream. I said yes, because that's what we do. We say yes to sweetness where we can. We were walking back to the car with a small cup of chocolate and sprinkles and a plastic spoon when my parents appeared like they were the weather again. They'd been waiting in the parking lot. My dad had a stack of glossy flyers in his hand with the words, "Morgan Roofing supports our community," and a picture of Lily, my daughter, my child, in the corner, her pink hoodied face printed like clip art. My mom reached for Lily like she could pluck her from my hand in a transaction I hadn't authorized. "Just 5 minutes," she said, breathless. "They have a camera." "He wants to." "No," I said with a sharpness that surprised even me. "She's not a prop." "It's telling our story," my dad said. "No," I said again. "It's telling yours." "Don't be so dramatic," my mom whispered in a voice meant to be gentle so the people walking by with their pretzels wouldn't hear. "We're doing this for her." "No," I said softly, but it came from someplace deep enough to shake. "You're doing this to her." Lily, my practical, literal girl, looked up at my mother and said, "Grandma, my tummy hurts when you ask like that." And that was it. The elevator stopped. I knew if I let them, they would muscle their way into every crowded place of her life. There are small sentences that make you pack a bag. I buckled Lily into the car, my hands steady because okay. When I looked up, my dad stood by the passenger door with his hands in his pockets, shoulders slumped, looking like a sad stone. "We're just trying to keep the business afloat," he said, almost apologetic. "It's a bad season. We lost the Maplewood account. We're behind on the truck payments. It's family." "I am your family," I said. "She is your family. Use your own story. Use your face." He shook his head and looked away, the way men do when the thing they've done finally flashes at them like a mirror. He put his palm on the roof of my car with a flat slap, like he needed to touch something to prove he existed. "We need help," he said, but it sounded like a door closing. I drove away with the taste of metal in my mouth and the sense that something had slid into place. That night, after Lily fell asleep, I called Kendra. Kendra is the friend I met in freshman orientation, who used to wear overalls and red lipstick and tell professors she was allergic to bullshit. And somehow she made a life in Denver where she runs a small design firm and knows the best places to get breakfast at 2 p.m. We talk all the time, but that night I called her with the kind of voice that asks for rescue without using the word. "I can't do this here anymore," I said into the phone, the glow of the nightlight making our hallway look like the memory of a house instead of the house itself. "I have to get Lily out." "Okay," she said, not asking questions that would make my decision wobble. "Come here. There's a children's hospital 2 miles from me. I have a second bedroom. I have a couch. I have coffee. I have a landlord who is only mildly creepy. I have you." That sentence cut through the noise like a line on a map. The next morning, I called Children's Hospital Colorado and asked about transferring care. I expected some kind of wall. Instead, they gave me an email address and a list of records they'd need, and said the words "continuity of care" in a way that sounded like a promise. By lunch, I had sent copies of everything I'd spent 2 years cataloging. When you've been living like this, you become a person who keeps receipts like talismans. I knew what I had. I put it in a Dropbox folder and color-coded it because the color was the only thing I could control. The plan whispered itself loud in my head: leave. The morning after that parking lot showdown, I woke up with a different nervous system. The coffee smelled like choices. My hands moved like they had an assignment. Lily slept late, her mouth open in a way that made her look like an impeachable evidence of everything I owed my own survival to. The calendar above the sink was the same. Everything else felt shifted a half-inch. I called my boss at Lincoln Elementary, the principal who wore bow ties and posted quotes on the office whiteboard about curiosity. "I need to take a leave," I said. He asked no questions that were meant to trap me. He said, "Family matters. Health matters," and emailed me a form as if the universe had decided it would be kind for once. I called Dave, my ex, and told him. I expected him to fight. He said, "Is it permanent?" in his slow Florida drawl that happens when he's trying to be careful. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I just know it's what's right." "Okay," he said, because somehow we are people who know when to not make things worse. He texted me a line, put it in writing, and sent to the child support portal because his new girlfriend works at a lawyer's office, and sometimes we benefit from her wisdom. I wrote a letter and sent it and saved the timestamp, like you do. At my kitchen table, I opened a fresh legal pad because starting things in an old notebook is bad mojo. I wrote a list. Call hospital in Denver, transfer timeline, first appointment. Housing, Kendra's guest room for now. School, get Lily's records, withdrawal plan. Work, leave papers signed. Money budget, 1-month cushion from fundraiser, apply for financial counseling. Tickets, soonest flight, if counts allow travel. Documents, birth certificates, social security cards, medical records, power of attorney for emergencies. Lawyer, call legal aid for consult on relocation logistics, grandparents, emergency contact forms. I did the hospital first. The nurse in Colorado, Lauren, had a voice like a person who liked her job. "We see a lot of transfer patients," she said. "Welcome. Send what you've got, we'll triage quickly. If she's stable, traveling in the next week is fine. Wear the mask. Bring meds. I'll coordinate with your Ohio team." She spoke to me like I was an adult who had not failed. I wrote her name on a sticky note and stuck it to my forehead for a second because I needed to be ridiculous somewhere. I called legal aid in Dayton, explained exactly, precisely, and calmly that I was relocating for medical reasons, that my ex had been notified, that I had sole physical custody and shared legal, that I was not aiming to cut ties, but to set limits. The woman on the phone sounded busy but interested. "Document intent," she said. "Send certified letters. Give people the chance to be on your side. Don't hide. They'll weaponize your silence." I wrote that down in all caps. They'll weaponize your silence. Kendra texted me a photo of the tiny second bedroom in her apartment. White walls, a window that looked out on an alley with a tree, a little dresser she got on Facebook Marketplace. "I will make mac and cheese and leave you alone unless you say the safe word," she wrote. Our safe word is rhubarb, which we chose 10 years ago because we thought it was funny. Lily's oncologist, Dr. Patel, was a woman who listened like she had all the time in the world. She signed the transfer without making it about me. "We'll send all records within 24 hours, she said. "Travel when she's ready. Text me at this number when you land." She wrote it on a card with her own pen. We hugged like professionals who had also cried together in supply closets. I bought the tickets while Lily was sitting on the floor with her Legos, building something that looked like one of those Eastern European apartment blocks. She likes to make order out of chaos. I clicked purchase, and my heart started beating in my fingertips. Cincinnati to Denver, layover in Chicago we might miss if the gate agent doesn't love us, carry on only because I don't trust baggage handlers with the life we need. Then the doorbell rang. My mother, with a plastic container of pasta salad and a voice that pretended nothing had happened. My dad, behind her, looking like he'd been practicing faces in the mirror and chose contrite with a garnish of righteous. "We thought we could do dinner tonight," she said, stepping inside like she always had a key even though she doesn't. "There's a place on Pine Street with those garlic knots. We could talk everything through." "No, thanks," I said, and then Lily peered around my leg with a Lego person between her fingers, and my mother put her hand on Lily's head as if blessing were a thing she was allowed to do. 10 minutes, my dad said. "No arguments. We just need to make a plan together." "Plans don't make themselves by ambush," I said. "Just dinner," my mom said again, and named a time like they were doing me a favor by letting me choose. 7. They left, and the house smelled like perfume and intrusion. I went back to my legal pad and wrote, "Carry on only. Keep documents in backpack. Keep tickets in purse. Pack extra meds. Pre-fill syringes. Print hospital letter for TSA. Pack bunny." At 5, Lily woke from a nap clammy and sad. "I don't want Grandma to come over anymore," she said, and stared at me like I would make it true because that is my job. I kissed her hairline and told her we were going on an adventure tomorrow. "A plane?" she asked, her whole face changing shape. "Yes," I said, and let her bounce a little on the couch because hope is allowed. "You and me. To see Aunt Kendra. And we'll get chocolate muffins at the airport." At 6:30, I put the boarding passes in my purse and a folded copy of the transfer letter and a note for the doorman of the building we don't live in because we live in a house, but I put it in there anyway because when you're in this mode, you prepare for everything, even metaphors. At 7, I went to dinner because sometimes you let people have their theater so you can say your line in the right place. Pine Street Trattoria at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday looks like an after-work idea of romance. Dim lights, a tinny soundtrack of old standards, a man at the bar with his tie loosened and a face like regret. My parents sat at a corner table under a framed photo of a bridge over a river I couldn't place. The tablecloth was white. The napkins were black. The candles had little bubbles in the glass that made it look like air trapped underwater. It all felt staged. "Hi," I said, in a voice that wasn't going to pretend. I sat. I put my purse on the bench beside me, my thigh against it like a guard. My mom smiled so hard I could hear it. "You look tired," she said, because that's always the first thing she says when she wants to take my temperature. "Have you been sleeping?" The server came and we ordered drinks like people who were going to have a pleasant evening, water for me, Pinot Grigio for my mother, beer for my dad. My mom's glass left a lipstick half-moon on the rim. I wanted to scrape it off with my thumbnail, to make something clean. "We want to talk to you about something practical," my mom said after the server left. "You know how things have been, with the business. Your father's been under a lot of pressure. It's not his fault. People aren't paying on time. Slowness. You know how the economy is. A bridge loan," my dad said. He said it like a regular person says, "Good morning," just to get us through. 50. Maybe 60 if they approve that much. We'll do 50 to be safe. We can consolidate. The cash flow will be fine in weeks. Months. Tops. 50 what? I said, because the way people say numbers sometimes needs to be clarified. My mom slid the manila envelope across the table with a chirp of paper, like she was offering me a birthday card. I pulled the flap and looked at the top sheet. It was a loan application already filled out, with my name and my social written in. I don't know how they had it. This is the part one had learned not to ask. The second page had signature lines. The third had an interest rate that made my mouth taste like pennies. There was a post-it that said, "Just sign here, L," with a smiley face. My mother's smiley faces have eyelashes, as if the dots need gender. "You put my social on a bank application," I said out loud so the words would sit in the air and we could all see them. "You don't even know," my mother said, her voice riding the edge of a laugh, because that's how she handles trespass. "Your credit is fine because you don't do anything with it. We'll make the payments. We just need your name. It's family. It's not like it's a stranger." "It's $50,000, I said. "It's not lunch." My dad leaned forward, elbows on the table, fingers laced like prayer in a place where we don't pray. I noticed his hands had gotten older, spots, a tiny scar on the knuckle where he hit it on a gutter when I was 13, and we didn't go to the ER because we were broke. I noticed he had always been this complicated man who could both fix a leaky faucet and break your heart in the same afternoon. "Rach," he said, "this is just paperwork. People do this every day. It's numbers. We'll be fine. You know us. We're good for it." "I don't," I said, and my voice paused itself so my breath could catch up. "I don't know that." "This is insulting," my mother said. "After everything we have done for you. The nights we sat with Lily, the meals, the errands, the money." I said, "Thank you," I said. And I meant it. "It doesn't mean you get to put me in debt." "You think you're above us," my dad said, softer than I expected. "You think you're better because you have a binder. You think I'm a wallet," I said quietly, and the table went still. The server came with breadsticks, like an idiot Greek chorus, and said, "Can I get you anything else?" in a practiced tone. I shook my head and took a sip of my water, and it tasted like all the times I had swallowed things I shouldn't. My mother pushed the envelope closer until it nudged my wrist. "If you loved us, you would help," she said. "If you loved me," I said, "you wouldn't ask like this." My father put his palm flat on the table, the way he does when he wants to calm things down but really wants to dominate them. "We need an answer," he said. I reached into my purse and pulled out the boarding passes. I didn't lay them out on the table like a garnish. I held them in my hands. I looked at them for a beat because I wanted to see my own exit. Then I put them gently next to my water glass. "I'm not signing anything," I said, "and then we're leaving tomorrow." Silence has the physiology of a living thing. This silence inhaled and tried to make room for us all. My mother's face went slack. My dad made a sound like he'd been shoved, low in his throat. He reached for the papers as if they'd burn him unless he moved them. "What?" my mother said, like I had told a joke in a language she didn't speak. "Lily and I said, the pronouns a raft. Denver. Kendra. Children's hospital there. We transfer care tomorrow. We'll be gone for a while. I need to get her away from this." My mother laughed a small, mean laugh that I think she regretted immediately. "You can't just leave." "I can," I said, because I had checked. I did the paperwork. Dave knows. The hospital signed off. The school knows. I'm taking a leave from work. This is happening. "You're not taking my granddaughter across the country," my father said, his voice low in that way that used to make me go quiet when I was 8. "We will go to court." "You can," I said. "You can do what you will. But there is no court that will tell me I have to put her in a room with a camera so you can sell a roof." "That's not fair," my mother said, her eyes bright with tears because crying gives you control of a room if people let it. "You're being cruel. We are just trying to survive. So are you. We are the same." "No," I said. "We are not the same." My father's hand landed on the edge of my purse like he wanted to stop me from leaving, not because he would but because he used to be able to. I put my hand on top of his hand, the way you do with an old dog you still love who wants to bite. "I am not signing those papers," I said, in a voice you could staple to something. He pulled his hand back like he'd touched a hot stove. My mother picked up the manila envelope and slid it back into her tote. She wiped her mouth with her napkin and left a pink stain. She stood. "You're out of your mind," she said, loud enough that the man with the loosened tie looked up. "I'm out," I said, and it felt like oxygen. I stood too. My father stood slowly, like standing hurt him. In another life, in another version of this night, I would have touched his sleeve. In this life, I took my purse and my boarding passes and left the restaurant without looking back. They followed me to the door, and in the entryway my father put his hand on the side of my car door, not hard, just there. He looked like he wanted to say 100 things and could find none of them. His voice, when it came, was small. "Please," he said. "Don't leave us." "I'm not leaving you," I said, and I said it like a fact that would hold even if he disagreed. "I'm choosing her. I'm choosing me. You can be in our life if you can be kind. If you can't, we'll be okay anyway." He dropped his hand. He didn't watch me walk away. My mother didn't call after me. The night air smelled like garlic and rain. My hands shook when I turned the key. I drove home and packed the last things. I tucked the bunny into Lily's backpack, put the paperwork in the front pocket, made sure I had the hospital letter for TSA in a plastic sleeve. I set an alarm for 4 a.m. At 3, Lily woke up to pee and found me sitting on the floor by her door, my back against the frame. "Mama," she said, like a question. "We're going to fly," I whispered, and she smiled with her eyes closed. We left before sunrise, the air heavy with the kind of quiet that feels like a beginning. We made our flight with the kind of timing that makes you believe someone slid the world half an inch in your favor. The TSA agent looked at our letter and waved us through, and Lily held her bunny under her arm while slipping off her sneakers like a pro. On the plane, she sat at the window and narrated the ground getting small. "That's the school," she said of a cluster of roofs. "That's the hospital," she said of a different cluster. "That's Grandma's car," she said, and we both laughed like maybe we could make jokes about this one day. In Denver, the air made my lungs feel like they were learning how to be lungs again. Kendra met us at baggage claim in a sweater that looked like a hug and held Lily like they'd known each other in some other story. Her apartment smelled like coffee and books and clean laundry that had actually been folded. The second bedroom really was small, but the window opened and there was a tree outside, and that felt like relief in a noun. We had our first appointment 2 days later. The nurse's name was Lauren, and the doctor wore sneakers with his scrubs and didn't say the word brave to my child. They asked for pain scores and listened to her answers. They told her she could decorate her 4-pole if she wanted. She drew a whale on a piece of tape and stuck it there and said, "Now we will always be swimming." Lily did what kids do. She found the corner with a toy kitchen and made me pretend coffee while we waited. I did what moms do. I found the social worker and asked about programs and support groups and transportation and bills. The social worker, a woman named Tessa with a British accent she had domesticated to the American Midwest, gave me a stack of pamphlets I would actually use and a phone number I would actually call. She told me it was okay to be tired. She said, "You've done a good job," and I didn't even know that was a sentence I needed until it knocked me over. The first text from my mother came the afternoon we landed. "You're a thief," it read. "You stole our family. You will pay for this." I did not respond. I wrote it down, which is not the same as responding. I made a folder in my phone called Boundary Violations because naming things makes them less slippery. The second text was a photo of the manila envelope on their kitchen table and a caption, "You will be hearing from a lawyer." The third was a screenshot of an email draft to my boss and Lily's school, with a subject line, "Urgent kidnapping." I called the principal and the head nurse and told them to expect emails and to delete them. They both said, "We know." The fourth text was from my father. It said, "Please call me," which is the kind of sentence you ignore when your emergency is your own. By day 3 in Denver, my mother had posted on Facebook that certain family members had abandoned them in their time of need, a phrase so melodramatic it flipped over itself. Kendra sat with me on the couch and scrolled with the detached interest of a person who has watched a few train wrecks. "Block," Kendra said, without pausing. "Don't look. Let me look. I'll tell you if you need to know anything, and you probably don't." Maybe because I didn't give her the drama of a fight, my mother called Child Protective Services in Colorado and said words like medical neglect and mental instability. The knock on our apartment door came at 10 on a Tuesday. The caseworker was a woman about my age, with a pen behind her ear and a tired kindness that made me feel like she had seen worse. She sat at Kendra's kitchen table and asked me questions in a voice that sounded like it had once been a lullaby. "I have documentation," I said, and she smiled because that sentence is a balm to people who do this job. I put the binder on the table. I showed her the transfer letters, the doctor's note, the appointment schedule. I told her why we'd moved. She didn't flinch. She asked Lily a few questions that did not pressure her. Lily, for her part, offered the caseworker a Play-Doh cookie and said, "We got on a plane." It was loud. The caseworker looked at me and said, "I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I'll close the case as unfounded." She wrote a note on her legal pad and asked if I wanted referrals for support. She looked at my eyes like the windows had been washed and she could see inside. When she left, I sat on the floor and cried. Kendra slid down beside me and handed me a tissue. "Still want mac and cheese?" she asked. I did. On day 5, a letter came from a lawyer in Ohio I didn't know addressed to Ms. Morgan, which I haven't been since I was 20. It said things about promissory notes and verbal agreements and contained a photocopy of a document that purported to be my promise to pay my parents $50,000. It had my name typed neatly. It did not have my signature. I called Allison Vega, the attorney the legal aid woman had recommended if things escalated. Allison answered on the second ring like she was expecting me, and her voice was the combination of sleep and steel that good lawyers wear like armor. I scanned the letter and the fake note and the GoFundMe screenshots and the text messages to her. She wrote back within the hour with a draft of a letter that began, "Dear Counsel," and then proceeded to say, "Cease. Desist. If you pursue this, we will seek sanctions and notify the state board and law enforcement about attempted fraud, but in words that got you paid." She asked me to write a short statement of what had occurred at dinner. I wrote it like I was putting seeds in the ground to grow a future where my daughter would read this and know her mother did not sign an agreement that would cost them their home. I included the parts about the envelope, the pressure, the plane ticket. I included copies of my bank accounts and receipts, with things circled, not to prove my poverty, but to show the math of my life. Receipts over rumors. It felt both humiliating and holy to put your own numbers on a page to ward off a story someone else is trying to write for you. A week later, we got a response. The Ohio lawyer had a letterhead that looked expensive and empty. "We have reviewed your position," it read. "We will not be pursuing this matter at this time." At this time. Always with the door propped. My parents tried once more with a grandparents' rights petition in Montgomery County. Allison told me what to do with the side that belonged to other cases and other lives. "Write a statement," she said. "Offer reasonable contact. Suggest supervised video calls at set times. Do not engage with their feelings. Aim for the judge's clarity." I wrote it. I set boundaries. We did video calls on Sundays at 2, where Lily showed them her Lego creations for 5 minutes and then got bored. My mother started to cry during the second call and Lily said, "Grandma, if you're sad you should go drink water," which is a thing they taught her at the hospital when she felt nauseous. My dad waved with a small hand. Sometimes his face looked like he wanted to say he was sorry. He didn't. After a month, Denver started to feel like a place where ordinary existed. Lily and I learned the route to the hospital without putting it in Google. We found a bakery where the woman memorized Lily's order and drew whales on her paper bag. We bought a cheap rug for the tiny bedroom so it didn't feel like a dorm. Kendra wasn't just a savior, she became an aunt in a way that doesn't require blood. She learned the med schedule. She made a chart. She sat with me on the floor folding laundry and watched trash TV while we didn't talk at all. Found family and chosen support. We lived inside that phrase like it was a tent in a rainstorm. Sometimes at night, after Lily fell asleep, I would lie on my back and picture my old house on Linden Avenue, the way the morning light hit the front room, the creak of the third stair from the top. I felt grief for a geography, even as I knew that geography had also been the site of a slow starvation. People talk about grief only when someone dies. They don't always talk about grieving the parent you never had a chance to have while the one you actually have texts you about a notary. I saved all the texts. I wrote it all down. I learned to keep my own narrative. 2 years turned and turned again. Lily stopped throwing up on Tuesdays. She kept enough hair that her barber learned how to trim curls in a way that didn't make her feel like a marionette. She started 3rd grade in Denver, where they let her come in late on days after treatment and didn't make a fuss about absences. She joined a clay class at the rec center and made a herd of abstract animals that lined Kendra's windowsill, all of them looking like they were moving toward a place just out of view. My dad and I texted occasionally in the climate of weather reports. He sent me photos of his garden like evidence that he could grow things. I sent him photos of Lily because she is his granddaughter, and there are pieces of him inside her that had nothing to do with rooflines. He sometimes wrote, "She looks good," like he was asking permission to say more. My mother and I spoke at formal intervals, the way people fight in court and then stand beside each other in a line at the DMV. She sent me a forwarded email about vitamin supplements once, and I wrote back, "We are following the doctor's plan," and she didn't reply for 3 months. We did the Sunday calls. They were awkward, and then they were normal only in the sense that they were consistent. Lily learned to talk about school in generalities, to show them art projects and then say, "I have to go," like ending a conversation is a skill they would not teach her otherwise. When Lily finished treatment, we rang a bell mounted on the wall in a hallway decorated with children's handprints. I cried with the kind of joy fear lives underneath because I had learned that good news doesn't erase tough roads, it just gives you a different map. Dr. Patel sent an email with an exclamation point, and it was the only exclamation point I let in the house that day, because it was earned. Kendra made us a cake with a whale drawn in blue icing. Lily cut the first slice herself and licked the knife because she didn't know cooking shows think that's a specific kind of sin, and we laughed. Around that same time, my dad started sending texts that sounded more like breath. "Tired," he wrote one day. "Doc says watch my blood pressure." The next week, "Can I call?" "Sure, talk." We talked, and he told me he'd had a rough night, chest pain that turned out to be indigestion and fear combined. I told him to go to the doctor anyway. He said he would. He probably didn't. By fall, the business had shrunk to a truck, and my dad worked a part-time job at a hardware store where he seemed to like telling people where to find washers and screws. He sent me a photo of a little boy in a baseball cap buying his first hammer. "Made me think of you," he wrote. "You were always better at the small jobs. You were careful." In January, my phone rang at 4:12 a.m. the way phones ring when something bad happens. It was my mother. Her voice was a thing I didn't recognize and did. "Rachel," she said. "Your father." The rest of the sentence was shard. I cut my fingers on it trying to pick it up. Heart. Ambulance. Didn't make it. I stood up in the dark and everything had to wait again. Grief is an ocean. It has tides and riptides and you can be fine, and then the smell of Irish Spring soap will take you back to a truck cab with a coffee in the cup holder and your father's voice singing along to classic rock and the way he used to tap the steering wheel when he was happy. He made me a workbench when I was 9 out of scrap wood in love. He taught me to parallel park in a church lot that smelled like summer heat on asphalt. He could be cruel to my mother in a way that slid under doors, but he never raised his hand. He was a man who thought money was morality, and that scared him. He was a map of contradictions, and I loved him, and he was gone. We flew back to Dayton for the funeral. The January sky there is a color no one paints. The funeral home had couches that made you feel like you had to sit up straight even when you wanted to fold in on yourself. My mother wore black and a face like something had been stolen from her by thieves, which it had, but death is not a theft. It's an inevitability we think we can outrun. The slideshow flashed photos of my dad holding Lily as a baby, of him on a roof with a nail gun, him on a beach with a t-shirt that said Grill Master, like he wanted to be a cliché because clichés felt safe. People hugged me and said words like, "So sorry for your loss," and "He was a good man," and I nodded because you don't litigate a whole life during a viewing. My mother squeezed my hand too hard and whispered, "I knew you'd come," as if coming was an indulgence I granted. After the service, in the funeral home kitchen that smelled like coffee and ham and perfume, my mother cornered me by the refrigerator. "We'll need to deal with the estate," she said, eyes bright with a fever that could never really be mourning. "There are debts. There are assets. There is the matter of the loan." She said the last word like I had stolen it from her mouth. "There is no loan," I said. "I didn't sign anything." "We have the application," she said. "We have the bank." "You have a paper with my name typed on it," I said. "You don't have my signature. And even if you did, I would have fought it, because I told you no." She looked away, like she was trying to keep her face from making a shape. "People will know what you did," she said. "People already know," I said. "They know I took care of my kid. They know I did not sign my life to your debt." She softened for a second like she might become a person again. Then she said, "Your father was a proud man." He couldn't ask his friends for help the way you asked strangers. I didn't ask my child to pay my bills, I said. We had nothing left to say. We stood in a little fake kitchen in a building where everything is designed to make people feel like grief is tidy, and we both knew it wasn't. Dayton felt smaller than when I left. The streets had the same cracks. The mural by the river was still bright. The house on Linden Avenue looked like a haunted place you could break into and not find treasure. I drove by my old elementary school and thought about the little girl I'd been and the woman I'd become, and how both of them wanted to know if we did the right thing. I drove back to my mother's house and sat with Lily in the guest room while she colored a whale in blue pencil and the radiator clanked like old bones. In the weeks after the funeral, there were emails from a new lawyer of my mother's, who had a less expensive letterhead and a more aggressive tone. Allison called it bluster. She wrote back with the surgical cruelty of a person who knows where to cut. "This is not a good use of the court's time," she wrote. "Your client risks exposure to countersuit for harassment." There were no more letters after that. My mother sent me an email on a Tuesday that simply said, "I need to see Lily," and I wrote back, "Sunday at 2:15, and we did. Lily held up a clay whale and said, "Grandma, it's swimming." My mother smiled and laughed for the first time in months. "She's beautiful," she said, and she meant my daughter, but also in some small way I think she remembered the world is big and small, and we were both inside it, and that was something. I didn't forgive her. That's not the moral of the story. I let her be a person I knew, one I set limits with. The love is there. The access to me comes with rules. It's a decision I remake every Sunday at 2 and every Mother's Day, and every time I see a man at a hardware store with hands like my father's. We flew back to Denver, and Lily started a unit on whales in school, like the universe wanted to make its metaphors obvious. She made a diorama with cotton ball clouds and blue tissue paper water and a clay whale that looked like it was about to jump. I put it on Kendra's windowsill next to all the other animals, and now when the sun comes in at 4 in the afternoon, it lights that whale like a tiny cathedral, which is the wrong word and the right feeling. Some nights when I can't sleep, I play a voice memo I recorded on the plane that first morning, while Lily was watching the ground fall away. In it, you can hear the hum of the engines and the way she says, "We're really doing it," like hope has a sound. In it, you can hear me breathe. Epilogue artifact, a voice memo transcribed. Date, June 12, 20. Recorded at 6:26 a.m. somewhere between Cincinnati and Chicago, seat 16A. You can hear the plane sounds, the low steady roar. Lily's small voice in the background, "Mama, look. Little squares." Me. It's the middle of the morning, and this is the only time I can think. "You're watching the ground. You said the houses look like sprinkles. You said the river looks like a ribbon someone dropped. You just told me your bunny is not scared because he can't read the safety card. I bought the ticket." That is a sentence that feels like leaving and going at the same time. I keep touching it like it might disappear. I keep touching her hair. It's prickly and soft, and it smells like our life. I want this voice memo to be a receipt. Not for the price of the ticket. For the decision. For the way you said, "We can sleep on Aunt Kendra's couch, like adventure doesn't hurt." For the way the nurse in this row smiled and said, "We could keep your meds in the cold place with the little sodas." For the way I did not text my mother back when she said a thing that made my stomach drop. For how it feels to put your hand on the window and feel the hum, and no hum is not the same as chaos. You said, "Are we brave?" And I said, "We are safe." That felt truer. If I ever need to prove to you that I did the thing that hurt and kept us whole, I want you to be able to hit play. I want you to hear this. I want you to know your mother sat in seat 16A, with a backpack under her feet and a life in her lap, and she chose. Yes, baby. We are. What I learned. Boundaries over blood is not a slogan, it's a practice. It's telling your mother no in a parking lot while your daughter holds a cup of melting ice cream, and then telling yourself yes in 100 ways after. It's changing passwords. It's setting times. It's choosing not to respond. It's building an exit and using it even when your body wants to stay in the burning house and keep passing people buckets of water. Found family is a thing you make on purpose. Kendra's apartment was a raft. The nurse in Denver who gave us a direct number The social worker who handed me a pamphlet without acting like I should already have known. The principal who signed my leave form with no drama. Those people built me a canopy. I learned to crawl under it without apologizing. Receipts over rumors. There is a power in saying, I have documentation, and taking your emotions off the table when someone throws theirs like confetti and demands you clean it up. I saved everything. Not because I wanted to go to war, but because I wanted to be able to end one. The smallest voices expose the deepest truths. Lily's phrase about elevators became the litmus test. Did a person's presence make my stomach drop? That's enough. You don't have to prove anything beyond that to yourself. Grief is not linear, and the funeral is not the end. I still miss my father in ways that surprise me while I'm buying screws at the hardware store. I still override the reflex to call my mother when Lily does something new. I sit next to my sadness and give it a cup of water and tell it we can stay as long as it needs, and then I go switch the laundry because life keeps being life. Safety is not a prize for bravery. It is not something you earn. It is something you build. On a plane. In a courtroom. In a kitchen. In a tiny bedroom with a window. Sometimes the bravest thing is to be ordinary in a place where no one is asking you to sign away your future over pasta.